All right, click the links and you'll have click the links. So in this article, this review about She-Hulk, this it's a left-wing source too. She's talking about the toxic fandom and the trolls. I said something like, "Yeah, we predicted that the trolls would say the show sucks," which kind of, and then she thinks that's a win to say we predicted that people trolls. You mean the customers or critics or fans or whatever people who used to be fans would say, "Yeah, the show sucks," which is kind of implying like, okay, so 3 years ago when you were writing out this show, you knew it was gonna suck enough that trolls, in quotes, trolls are just anyone that disagrees with them. You knew that these trolls were gonna say this show sucks on social media, like people talk about every show, and they're a troll if they say it's bad, but they're not a, I don't know what you call the love bombers who go to like the movie review sites and give like just the dumbest shows perfect tens. You're like, dude, come on, it's not a, no, Rings of Power is not a perfect 10. So you're saying like the original Lord of the Rings is also in the same league as Rings of Power type of scores? It's like, yeah, they never complain when people give, oh, this is a huge percentage of perfect scores. Yeah, those aren't organic. Anyway, so why didn't you just make a show that was not going to get people trolling you 3 years later? Because they're saying the show sucks, and it's like, yeah, we predicted that. Oh, okay. The next part of that equation is like you could have just made something that would have had broader appeal, because this is you're selling a product to people. They have to buy the Disney to pay for it. Now here's the thing. The left wing review site, even on this thing, it says the show sucks. But even the people who are saying the show sucks or it's a miss or something like this, they have to be, it's not politically correct to say exactly why the show sucks. And they won't do that, because if they're on, all this CBR, Kotaku, all this kind of left wing stuff, they're not gonna go there, because they're on social media too, and they would become the focus, and then they would be attacked on social media. It's like you can't have an honest discussion about anything, because people will immediately attack you personally and then scroll through your timeline. That's the weirdest thing people do on Twitter, is they'll scroll through your tweet history because you made some tweet about some pop culture thing that someone disagrees with, and you're like, yeah, why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just take the argument on the face of it and like address the argument? No, I scrolled through your tweet history. Yeah, that's kind of weird. I mean, it's a little weird. Why here the thing is, like, the people, it's 15% of people on Twitter are doing 85%, and the power Twitter has to control this narrative, to get people to believe that something like She-Hulk or all the other stuff, I can't even think, all the other crap that's coming out, and or Star Wars is the other big one, or Rings of Power, or I don't know, maybe Games of Thrones, that seems to have a little bit more support behind it, that these things are vastly more popular than they are. Or who's that guy? The Eichner guy who did the movie Bros the other day. He got like, he's talking. He does a tweet something about, yeah, the show didn't do as well, and I blame these people for it. And so the tweet's, by the time it's done, it's going to get like 100,000 likes on the tweet. At the time I checked, it had like 60,000 likes on a tweet when 3,000 people went and saw it that opening weekend. So more than 10 times the amount saw that doesn't quite, you know what I'm saying, like tweets, likes, and retweets. Yeah, I'm going to retweet the hell out of this. I'm going to click this little heart and it's going to turn red. Okay, that's great. I mean, maybe you got a dopamine. I mean, you definitely did. That's how the repetition of social media works. And I'm sure it made Eichner feel good, but it probably would have made him feel better if you had watched the movie and like, oh, I'm not going to do that. Because it sucks. Because it sucks. And Twitter is free. And all this kind of like, you see these examples all the time where you see people who have, I don't know what to call them, fan bases, is not quite, like people in the comic industry who've got big followings. And then you look at the stuff they're selling, you're like, oh, okay, something doesn't add up. Yeah, following somebody is free because they're like a cultural icon. I'm not going to name any names, but these people they're important to the left-wing narrative. But then when they put something out there, they crowdfund something, or they're selling a comic. It's like, oh, it sold 900. You got like 100,000 followers, and you did a comic, and it sold 900. That 900 issues. That's a little weird. It's like you see that stuff on Twitter all the time. It's like the biggest delusion for these people is to think that Twitter is, as a marketing tool, it is not the powerhouse that people seem to think it is. All right, so the hypertext tells you what happened in episode 7. Nothing happened. She complains, and then around a bunch of other people who complained. So the image of her, eating the French fries and all dressed up in a wig and all this kind of stuff, that is more interesting than the show ever was. All the production photographs that she does where she's spray painting, the pushing her icon in LA and stuff, that's vastly more entertaining than the show itself, which is absolutely unwatchable. So you had all the tools in place to make Ally McBeal. Perhaps, I know you're familiar with that show, even if it was a little bit before your time. That's all you had to do. It's like, that should have been your template. Oh, yeah, but we can't make Ally McBeal because that's cute and sexy and fun and silly. And Calista Flockhart wasn't like I don't know how feminist that show was, but it's like, that wasn't what they were selling. They were selling sex appeal and humor. And maybe they had some serious episodes every now and then, but but they sold the hell out of it, and that show actually did pretty well. It had a following, and like these production photos where you're doing something. Oh, she's so random. She's putting a French fry. I guarantee she's not eating that French fry. Putting holding a prop and looking cute in her, her costume. It's like, okay, yeah, why don't you put that energy into the show? So here's the thing: attacking the customer doesn't help, and the reason they couldn't do the Ally McBeal thing is because, like, the girls in Ally McBeal were cute, sexy, and that was a big part. But that appeals to the male gaze. Yeah, in both meanings of that phrase. Yes, and yes, it does. It appeals to everyone. But you're not doing that in She-Hulk. No, we're not going to do that in She-Hulk. So who does She-Hulk appeal to? It's like Bros. It doesn't appeal to a whole lot of people. Anyway, so no, attacking the customer doesn't help. The customers are not toxic. That's the biggest copium. Your show is toxic. Your lack of self-awareness is toxic. All you had to do was make something fun with girls in short skirts doing whatever they're going to do. That's would get you better results than insulting either the audience, the potential audience, and not just hurting the She-Hulk brand, which is, I think, damaged beyond repair for at least for this streamy type of stuff. Maybe if you make a movie, it'd be something different. But you're hurting Disney as well. And the thing with Disney, and not just Disney, but Hollywood as well, it's the intermittent chicken reward experiment where the chicken has to peck a button to get a treat. And they test to see, like, well, how few treats per pecks does it have to get, random pecks and random treat releases, before the chicken gives up and goes off to go look for worms. And that's that experiment to find out where you graph out that bell curve of chicken rewards. Now, here's the thing with Disney and with this show specifically and with Hollywood in general, is we're reaching that point where it's getting by. It has its not political capital, I guess social capital, name recognition capital for Hollywood in general, where, especially for something like Disney, it's coasting off of stuff like from the 90s. And comic books kind of did that too, but the more you think about this in Hollywood, and you realize, like, oh, things have been getting kind of slippery for a long time. And then you look at 2016, yeah, Trump derangement syndrome. It just went through Hollywood like a wrecking ball. But then you look at the 2020 riots and you realize, oh yeah. So ever since then, things have been kind of funky. But you can also read the future and realize, oh yeah, this is just not going to change. This is it. And so you're still paying for all these Amazon, HBO, all this kind of stuff, and you realize, oh yeah, all that stuff you're watching is old stuff maybe, and it's like every new thing that comes out, including Andor, Star Wars, and this, the two big new streaming shows, or Rings of Power too. It's like this is just mean and hateful, and like it's propaganda. You know it's propaganda, and the left-wing people who are reviewing this are not going to come out and say it's propaganda because it's left-wing propaganda. Obviously, specifically, yes, it's globalist propaganda. I don't know how politically correct it is to say that, but it's just way over the top of just not even being a show. It's just propaganda. And those three shows are absolutely horrible. Maybe Games of Thrones has got a... no, because even Games of Thrones, there's those dudes who are not part of the family, so to speak, but they gave them like blonde wigs, and nobody ever looks around and goes, this is just ridiculous. This doesn't make sense. They're Africans with blonde hair. Yeah, okay, pretty rarely, but were they in Games of Thrones? I mean, it's some you don't listen. It's like they're gonna call you istophobic no matter what. You just gotta go listen. Let's continue this discussion. Yes, for the sake of argument, I'll assume that we called each other simultaneously these istophobic ad hominem deflection terms. Now let's address the nature of the argument. The peak of the triangle, not the the logical fallacies below that. Let's talk about why the show doesn't work. And it's like if they didn't have personal insults and ad hominems, like if they weren't able to call people istophobic, they wouldn't have an argument. Because you look at all those 4 shows I mentioned, which are the kind of the ones going out right now. You go, look, this is why I feel they're horrible, because all these people don't look like they belong together. They're not this like doesn't logically make up a tribe. And also literally in She-Hulk, the first 5 minutes of the episode was blonde man bad, or some fair-skinned man bad, and then the first 5 minutes of Rings of Power was some fair-skinned man bad, and then in Andor it was the whole. I watched all Andor so far. It's the UK colonial imperial, mostly fair-skinned people bad, and the darker-skinned Latin contingent is good. And I don't know what the other show, Games of Thrones. It's like, well, you got these people who all it's like a European mythology and fantasy story kind of, like obviously Games of Thrones is kind of roughly based on all the earlier European fantasy. It's like, oh, so you threw some black guys in there. Like I understand you want to be whatever diverse for its own sake, but how does that advance the show's interest? Oh, it does. And to be fair, She-Hulk, well, there is a lot of like BLT stuff in She-Hulk, and that's another thing that's not politically correct to say, is that you go, oh yeah, not exactly rock his cock, but you just want to bang these actresses. No, it's not that. It's like there's just a subliminal psychological connect when you see characters that you can identify with, and one of the ladies in this show is BLT. Most people just don't identify with that. It's not hideous revulsion. It's just they're not connecting with the character. So why would you put it in there? Oh, for representation. Yeah, but that's I always remember that Leslie Halen thing from Star Wars. She worked somewhere in Star Wars. I think she worked for Weinstein too. So she's a piece of work. Talking about that leave the money on the table quote. Like, we're leaving money on the table if we don't go after this whole audience. But it's this fallacy of you're going to retain the old audience as you seek the new audience. And like all these companies are seeing that that's not true. It just doesn't. It's like you got this. You would be better off if you had a show of everyone who all looked together. It doesn't matter. They don't necessarily have to be European, but that would be your biggest audience. Even if it was like a Wakanda thing, they're all of some kind of African origin, it would be a bigger draw than if you'd mix them up. Like, gee, why doesn't Wakanda have diversity? Like, oh, yeah, there's plenty of Chinese and like Northern African Egyptians, and there's people from all over the world who live in Africa. Like, yeah, why don't you do that in the next Black Panther movie? Have Chinese and Europeans and everyone's all, they're all in Wakanda together. Yeah, we're not, but yeah, we're not going to do that because the African experience is valuable to us and the European and Asian experience is not. Oh, okay. I mean, it's, and just if I can get on a segue, the weird thing about Black Panther is all those are American actors, right? Or most of them are, but they all look differently. The physical features, the heights, the anatomical structures, the slight variations in skin tone and face, like they don't look like they're part of a tribe where like all you had to do was get American, like find a tribe in Africa, so you get like 500 people who all look roughly similar, and then find the American actors who look as similar to that tribe as possible, and it would have made more sense. But like now you have this Wakanda thing. It's like clearly these people themselves are not part of a tribe. Like I can clearly see these are mixed African American people or African UK people, but it doesn't, like, even that didn't make sense. But they're like, oh, well, we need the name recognition of the actors to star in the show or something. It's like, yeah, but if you're going to go this far, why don't you bring in some Chinese and some full Europeans and, really go the diverse route? Oh, because like I said, we just don't value those people. They're just as dehumanized as possible. Like, yeah, eventually people will kind of pick up on that. This is a great production photo, and the other stuff that she's released on her Instagram and Twitter are great also. She looks like she's having a lot of fun, and she is having a lot of fun. I mean, like she said, she got to do at least one season of a show, though, as I suspect it'll probably get renewed. Um, because if they don't, I think Ms. Marvel is on the question mark too. Because if it doesn't, it's like, oh, it's an L for the left wing. It's an L for Disney that this diversity push isn't working. Now, here's the thing. Obviously, as I said 1,000 times, this isn't about money. It's about ideology. Bolshevism is a religion to them. They're not going to back down off of this. They can't. And none of the companies, Amazon, HBO, or Warner Brothers, and Netflix, and all these companies, they're not. There's no alternative for you to go to. Like, I don't know, one of those big companies. If Amazon said, well, there's no companies right now that are not woke. Though it would be an interesting cascading effect if one of them decided to say, you know what, screw it, we're gonna go back to what. That's not going to happen. Like, you fundamentally don't understand the motivation of these people. If you can't solve the crime if you don't really know the motivation. The motivation of these people is not money. They'll burn these companies to the ground, or close enough to the ground, before the shareholders, controlling interest people come in there and say, oh, okay, we're going to have to like get rid of the whole board, get people in there. We got to turn a profit. We're not going to let $1 billion company go down. But there's no alternative. So like when Disney's not going to back off, but neither are the other top dozen, Hollywood entertainment companies. They're all on board with this. These are all Bolsheviks. It's like, I know people hear that word and it kind of sounds a little tinfoil hatty until you start looking at the history of it. And it's like, okay, maybe Marxist, globalist, whatever kind of term you want to use. It is a religion. Even if those terms are too much, it's like, just think of it as a religion to these people, because otherwise you don't get shows like the ones I just mentioned and all the stuff that's come out since 2015, the Disney trilogy, and then 2016 Ghostbusters, and then all the Charlie's Angels, Terminator, the latest X-Men, all those kind of shows. I'm making hand gestures. I don't know why. All those shows that came out that underperformed or bombed, including, what was the last Sony thing that just came out that bombed? I don't remember. Like, you're saying that these people are making bad decisions repeatedly and losing, hundreds of millions of dollars, or underperforming to the tune of billions of dollars for Disney Star Wars, and or Solo. They're continuing to make, with the robots, the robosexuals or something like that. Like, they're continuing to make bad decisions that they think are good decisions. So these people are what? They're to the left of the bell curve? That doesn't make sense. They're in charge of billion-dollar companies. They know what they're doing. This is a religion. Like, this, you have this Ally McBeal thing, and I understand it's on Disney. It's probably not going to be too sexy. I don't think the original was too sexy. It was just beautiful women in short skirts, being cute and silly. And that was the whole shtick. Like, you easily could have captured that market on Disney. You would have had a huge female audience. What was it? Ally McBeal was in the 90s. There was another show in the 90s. I think it was called Melrose Place. It was something about just a bunch of good-looking people in an apartment complex, I don't know, lounging by the pool or something like that. There were shows like that. It's like they knew what the audience was, and I think they had huge female audiences. You could have done that with this. Like, you've got what appears to me a good-looking chick who's having fun, and I'm sure I haven't watched too much of the show, but I like, how hard would it be to just do, we're going to do Ally McBeal, but she's going to be She-Hulk. So find a girl who looks like Ally McBeal, and then we'll find like a female, like, I don't know about the CGI. I would have went with like a female bodybuilder. Just get the tallest, biggest chick you can, and have her be just paint her green like they did with Lou Ferrigno back in the 80s. And I would have went that route. It probably would have been a lower budget anyway. They'd have like a woman, bodybuilder run around and do stuff. So how hard would it have been to do that? Yeah, but like we said, that gives the customer what they want. Come on, we're all fans here. No, you keep using that word fan. It's customer. These people they're customers, or they're ex-customers, because they're not supporting me anymore. Like, I look at this image and like, now I think about it, I get pissed. I think, like, you've got everything. You've got all the tools. You have sets and money and investments and great actors and good-looking people. It's like, that's all you need. Let's add in some short skirts and some sexy double entendres that are, Disney acceptable. Though now Disney is going to be like, I said this, I was thinking this time next year, like, how many Disney characters are going to be like trans kids, like legitimately post surgery under 18 trans kids? Like, that's probably the future of Disney, unless people really, really wake up. And there's the thing is, with Disney and all these shows, all these companies, there's no bottom to it. They don't have a dogma. And there's no one to tell the companies differently. So like they'll just keep getting more and more sick and twisted and degenerate. And these aren't really examples of it, but I mean you've seen it with the Amazon, some of the Amazon offerings, the cuties, or was that Netflix or something, that kind of stuff. Or I mean there's other shows. I don't the you know what are the kind of shows I'm talking about. Like now extrapolate a year from now in the future, or 5 years from now. Like try to imagine what you're going to see, and before you think, oh, that's not conceivable. If 20 years ago I told you what you'd be seeing today, 20 years ago, you'd say that you wouldn't believe it. You just wouldn't believe it. So what do you think you're going to be seeing a few years from now? Because this, the slippery slope is just exponentially. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. See you guys on the next episode.